Okay, we'll call this meeting to order via resolution 2024-45. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Morton and Councillor Manson. And we are 7 o'clock exactly, or 6 o'clock exactly, 6 p.m. And please note that the quorum has been achieved. Councillor Latimer has sent his apologies. He will not be attending tonight, so at least we have quorum with the existing council. So now therefore be it resolved that the February 13th, 2024 regular meeting of council be called to order at 6 p.m. and noted that quorum has been achieved. All in favor? And I am as well, so that is carried. Next item is the suspension to suspend the procedural bylaw. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Grant moves the motion and Councillor Morton seconds. Now therefore be it resolved that the procedural bylaw be suspended for the duration of this meeting. All in favor? And that is, I am as well, so that is carried unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the declarations of disqualifying or pecuniary conflict of interest. Are there any? None? None? All right, so that is all. Next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. This is resolution 2024-47. A mover and a seconder, please. That is Councillor Manson and Councillor Morton. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin hereby approves the agenda as circulated. All in favor? And I am as well, so that is carried. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the previous meeting minutes. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Morton and Councillor Manson. Now are there any discussion on the minutes? No, none. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Calvin approves the meeting minutes of January the 30th, 2024 be hereby adopted and signed as circulated. All in favor? I am as well, so that is carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda are delegations, which we have none. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda for items for information purposes. I need a mover and a seconder. I can move Councillor Grant and seconded by Councillor Morton. Any discussion on the consent agenda? No, none. Okay, call this to a vote now. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Calvin hereby receive the consent agenda items as circulated, less any items requested for separate review and discussion. All in favor? And I'm as well, so that is carried. On to section 8 of the agenda. And the first is 8.1.1, which is a bylaw 2024-11, a road use agreement for 222 Latimer Lane, Tamara, Silverthorne. And you mover and a seconder, please.
8.1.1.
Yeah, business arising from previous council meeting and bylaw. Okay, so Councillor Morton and Councillor Manson. You've all had a chance to read the agreement at 222 Latimer Lane. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councillor Grant.
I do have a small point that I think is significant here on this, and see if there's consensus or not around the table. The agreement itself is not what I want to discuss. I was simply wanting to discuss the in the resolution, it talks about all the costs being borne upon the proponent. And I think that logically that makes sense and I understand the recommendation. However, I see this as a document that we would use moving forward. We would have like a draft document, and in order to promote, development, I don't see this as necessarily having to be called a revenue neutral item. So I think, to me, it makes sense that we would have that document and be able to offer that document without them incurring significant costs to sign it. And I see that as an economic development piece, but also as, if we're creating, this standard draft document, I wouldn't want one person to have to pay more than, say, the next or the next after. Obviously, it would need to be tweaked to each individual situation. But I'm not aware of the cost, but I think it makes sense that we view this from a development perspective, and to assume costs that, would be, the planner, the lawyer. I mean, to me, that's municipal costs. I don't think it should be I don't think it should be passed along to the proponent. And so I would propose a change to remove that section of billing them for it. But that's my perspective, and anybody else, wants to chime in.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Councillor Grant, anybody else with discussion? Councillor Madsen.
I would echo those thoughts, in particular, as they're ratepayers and they're not getting one of the, I'll say, primary services that ratepayers enjoy, which is a driveway year round. So to set up to do their own road maintenance, I think that does make a lot of sense. Take a little bit of the cost, or I'll say sting, out of it. So I think that's a good idea, and it seems to make some sense to me.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Morton. Any discussion?
Well, then I presume that your change to the resolution would mean that the municipality would resume those costs. So yes, where's the benefit? I understand the economic growth thing, but why should the whole township pay for somebody else's private development, and which they're going to benefit from in the long? And not this particular case, but I'm talking about somebody who wanted to probably develop, put in 8 houses. And we're on the hook for those planning charges. I don't think that's fair to the township.
Thank you. Madam CEO.
Yours?
Sure. Well, the difficult point for me here is that I see a lot of people wanting to live in a lot of different places. And if somebody wants to live very remotely, there is a cost to that. They're not choosing to live in a place that should be really cheap and inexpensive. They're choosing to live in a place that is very remote because that's what they desire to do. I know of other places where people have decided to live on a lake, and when they want to move to the lake, they have to pay for everything to bring a road into that lake. So what they do is they gather together with 3 or 4 people and they share the costs of moving to that area. I think just to say that, in the course of development, the township should pay for that, but perhaps not pay for those people on the lakefront is not a fair distribution of taxes. I think you have to, if you want to live somewhere very remotely and you buy a piece of property and you want to build a house, and I'll give you another example. If someone buys a 100-acre lot and they don't want to have nearby neighbors, so they build their house at the very back end of the lot so that they're very isolated. They have to bear the costs of getting a road into their particular residence. If they want to just not have any cost, build right on the township maintained road. And now you suffer having other neighbors close by, but you don't have the costs of putting the road in. So I think that asking other taxpayers to pay the costs of these road agreements is not a fair situation. Again, it's a vote of council, and it's not just my opinion. I think the one thing, Councillor Grant, that you mentioned was that there would be a standard road agreement that would be applicable for everyone, and then there wouldn't be costs. And I think I'm going to defer that to the CAO, because I don't think we can just do one road agreement for everybody. But I could be wrong.
Well, this is the same road agreement that's been used in the past, but it does require the planner to have a look at where the road agreement is going, the conditions of that particular road and that situation. The planner does consult, takes time to consult with our CGIS, with the road itself, with the road superintendent. That does cost us money, and then it goes to the lawyer and to make sure that nothing has been missed based on what the planner and the roads department have said. So the costs, as you say, are borne by the municipality in this case, because someone chose to live on a road that was not maintained. So I think you should bring it to a vote.
All right, before I do, is there any last discussion?
I guess I would, when I look at ratepayer value, there are some aspects of the municipality. We have some infrastructure here that people, residents can enjoy and use. And we have the service of the landfill. But I think in reality, the main normal benefit enjoyed by ratepayers are the road maintenance and landfill. So they have access to landfill, but they don't have their portion of their road maintained by the township. So they're still paying taxes. And I believe that, you know, to me, I want to make sure everyone's getting a good value. So the folks that are doing their own road maintenance, they're not getting, in my view, as much value for their ratepayer dollar as me, where I happen to live on Peddlers and it gets plowed. So that's where I'm kind of looking at it. That's my perspective on it, is to say, well, recognizing that you are assuming some liability, have to purchase insurance, need equipment, all these things on an ongoing basis to plow our road, the municipal road, that, again, taking a little bit of the sting out of it, of having the upfront costs borne by the municipality and that's all I had to say.
All right, nothing else?
One last quick point. I just think that, you know, there's not a lot of opportunities to, sometimes it's hard to find opportunities to promote development in the township. And, basically no one's going to want one of these agreements unless they plan to build. I mean, that's the whole point. So, there's revenue that is going to be generated from these agreements. And, you know, I don't have the specific dollar amounts. I'm not willing to vote it down based upon the cost. I think that would be moving backwards, but I just think that, you know, this is a future opportunity for us moving forward to look at, you know, development and how we can make it easier for people to build.
Thank you, Councillor Grant, and I agree that I think it is something that we have to look forward in a future meeting, but I'm going to call this resolution as it stands to a vote. Should I read it first in its entirety?
You did say that you didn't have to read the bylaws with the motions here.
Okay, this is a long one, so please bear with me. This is bylaw 2024-11 road use agreement for 222 Latimer Lane, Tamara Silverthorne. Moved by Councillor Morton and seconded by Councillor Manson, whereas the Corporation of the Municipality of Calvin is in receipt of the road use agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Calvin and Tamara Silverthorne. The municipality is the registered owner of the seasonally maintained road called Latimer Lane. And whereas Silverthorne desires year-round access to the property on Latimer Lane and has applied to the municipality for permission to use certain sections of Latimer Lane, more particularly described in Schedule A attached here to the premises, to perform maintenance on those sections during the period from October the 1st in 1 year to May 31st in the following year, the winter period. And whereas the municipality has agreed to permit certain sections of Latimer Lane to be so used on the understanding that Silverthorne will assume all responsibility for maintaining this portion and for certain liability arising out of its use as specified in this agreement. All costs associated to the preparing of this agreement, including administration, planning, and legal costs, shall be borne by the proponent, Silverthorne. Fees incurred by the municipality for the preparation of this agreement shall be payable to the Corporation of the Municipality of Calvin within 30 days of the issuance of the invoice. Now, therefore, the Council of the Municipality of Calvin directs as follows: that the mayor and CEO are hereby designated as signing officers and are authorized to execute the road agreement between the Corporation and the Municipality of Calvin, owner of the seasonally maintained road called 222 Latimer Lane, and Tamara Silverthorne, the applicant. That the attached agreement identified forms part of this bylaw, that the agreement shall be signed effective from the date the agreement shall be signed and come into effect once funds have been received by the municipality and approved signage has been erected by the property owner, read a first, second, and third time, enacted and passed on this 13th day of February. So, all those in favor? Well, we have 3 to 1. I'll record the vote. So I'm in favor. Councillor Manson has opposed, and Councillor Latimer is not here. So 3-1, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the 8.1.2 Calvin Department, Fire Department outdated gear. Need to move for a seconder, please. Councillor Manson, Councillor Morton, second. Any discussion on the outdated gear?
Here from the fire chief.
Well, no.
Brought this forward to the last meeting.
Yeah, we're just deciding to
Oh, this is for the old equipment, sorry.
okay, well, no discussion? No. All right, I'll call this to a vote. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Municipality of Calvin supports the fire chief's recommendation that outdated fire gear, on average 10 years old, purchased with municipal funds, having ended their useful life for the Calvin Fire Department use, be donated to the Firefighters Without Borders. All those in favor? And that is unanimously carried. I am as well in favor. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 8.13, which is again from the fire department for new hires. I need a mover and a seconder, please. For Manson and Councilor Morton. I'm laughing not because it's just with only 3 people here, it's
The same names. over and over again.
that's okay. Okay, so there were a number of people recommended to be hired. Any discussion? None? None? Oh, yes.
Just that it's nice to see new members joining. That's exciting. Thank you.
Absolutely. Councilor Morton, you had your hand up? No?
This is the one I thought fire chief was a comment on, no?
So if I might, these were found in Mario's last report, but we had no forewarning that they were coming, so we hadn't prepared resolutions.
Right,
Yeah.
but
the last two items.
All four of these gentlemen are now gonna be on the fire department.
Officially.
Thank you.
So the
I-
bylaw does say that council has to approve them before they start. So Mariel and I have gone through that bylaw and she's now aware that we need these resolutions before they appear in a report from now on.
I know there was an update to this resolution. Is it just the four names? Is that what I have? Is that correct?
The effective date for Pat's,
They didn't have-
Oh,
July 13th, 2020,
okay,
provided by the fire chief.
2023. Okay. Thank you. So I'll call this to a vote. Now therefore be it resolved, the council accept the fire chief's recommendation to hire the following firefighters. Pat Scrope, effective July 13th, 2023. Brandon Apps, effective November 30th, 2023. Tyler Wright, effective December 7th, 2023. Grant Noker,
Yeah,
Noker,
This knocker.
Knocker,
I think that's how you pronounce it. Knocker.
Knocker, effective January the 18th, 2024. And furthermore, that prior to February 29, 2024, the fire chief submit to the CAO an updated list of all current firefighters, including their home and cell telephone numbers, email addresses, date of hire, position titles, along with a copy of DZ licenses if relevant to their role, and completed federal and provincial tax forms for all current firefighters. Call this to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 8.1.4, and this is the resignation of a council member is sitting on the East Nipissing Planning Board. I need a mover and a seconder.
it has to be you.
Manson and Morton. I'm not sure how to proceed with this, because this may be defeated, deferred, or canceled, and I'm going to ask the CEO what we should do here.
Maybe I can just comment on that first.
Sure.
For discussion.
Because I mean, there is a discussion. So I added this to the agenda. Basically, I did not have time to attend the meetings. However, I've reorganized my schedule and I now do have time to attend the meetings. So seeing as it was on the agenda, I thought, obviously we'll bring it forward and, if other councilors have something to comment, that's fine. But I would like to withdraw my resignation and stay on the planning board. So that's why we're here. So I don't, I don't know exactly how that would proceed.
And I don't either,
I'll
because
leave it to the chair.
the resolution says to accept the resignation, so.
We could
Don't accept it.
change it.
Yeah.
Don't
How
accept
do we do
it.
that?
Oppose it.
Well, and I do think that you can withdraw it at the same time.
I believe I can. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, so we just
We just
withdraw the
withdraw
resolution,
resolution.
all right? All those in favor of withdrawing the resolution? And that is carried unanimously, so the motion is withdrawn.
If we can reword it, then council is in receipt of and
Withdraws the resignation of Councillor Dean Grant? I'm not sure. Like I said,
I
I
don't know.
read this.
It's a resolution, not a bylaw. I don't know if the level of detail is
Right.
super important, but I want to make sure it's right. But
is in a receipt of the resignation of Councillor Dean Grant, who has since withdrawn.
Okay. Councillor Dean.
No action. necessary. Yeah.
Please. All right, and that motion is carried. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is, we're into, section 9, administrative matters. And the, first item is 9.1.1, which is, the, 2022 to 2026 strategic plan review. I need a mover and a seconder to discuss this, please. Councillor Morton
second.
and Councillor Grant. So, discussion. Anybody?
We're already, thought we were already well on our way on this and up to date on some, our next stage of July 2024.
You're talking about the asset management plan.
Yeah, that's, this is a strategic plan.
This is a strategic plan, so this is wholesomely within our control.
Yes,
And I think that, if I may,
yes,
there have been a few comments from some professionals in the municipal field that one gentleman had suggested that we remove the strategic plan from the website because it was not good.
yes.
And I think that might be why, we might want to look at it. I mean, I was part of creating this strategic plan. And, at the time, the goal was to be very simple and to get something done, and something that wasn't controversial. So we can, I'm sure we can make improvements and make it much more professional, absolutely. And I still believe, try to keep it simple without getting overly complicated and having 100 meetings. So.
Thanks very much, Councilor Grant. Anybody, any other comments? No?
I think it would be appropriate to review and plan, time parameters of 22 to 26. We're getting there, so it would be starting to dust it off and take a look, improve where necessary, delete irrelevant portions, add new relevant portions. A lot has changed even in the last few years. Priorities have shifted, the organization's operating a little bit differently. So I think it definitely warrants a good going over, maybe in a committee situation, maybe council as a whole. I'm not sure the way to do that, but yes, I think it's very appropriate to review and update.
Thank you very much for your comments. The way the resolution is worded, if I can just chime in with my comments, is that a special meeting will be held at a future date to review this, and that will be meaning that we would have one special meeting to decide on how we're going to review. So that's what we're actually voting on here. And the training we received from Municipal Affairs at the last session really talked about some of the challenges that are faced by the township right now and putting those into a plan to decide what we have to do first, second, third, fourth. And I know that every one of you has talked to me about things that you would like to accomplish in the future. And those are things that probably should be in the strategic plan, and they should be timelined. We should say that by this date, we're going to try to accomplish this particular thing. So I too agree that we need to have a special meeting to revamp this program.
And if I might add, typically a strategic plan also involves community consultation about what the community would like to see happen in the municipality. So this is not only about the direction that council thinks that council wants to do, but what, community feedback, and that can be done in a number of ways that don't need to be very complicated, whether they be surveys that go out with, in the mail or online surveys, something simple, quick, there's all kinds of models. And okay, we can hold meetings, we can not hold meetings, we can do mail-in, you can do it electronically, in person. But it would be my recommendation that also that you consider community input into the strategic plan at that time. But as you said, we can have a special meeting to discuss what and how and by when.
Exactly. And that's what the resolution reads. So I will call this to a vote. Whereas Council for the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin desires to review the municipality's 2022 to 2026 strategic plan. Now therefore be it resolved that a special meeting will be held at a future date to review the message of council vision and mission statements, goals, and objectives. All those in favor? And I am as well. So that motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is the AMO Social and Economic Prosperity Municipality Review. I need a mover and a seconder. So Morton, Councillor Morton, and seconded by Councillor Grant. Discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Grant.
I thought this was a breath of fresh air. I think think municipalities are getting a very bad deal when it comes to, the financial burden that the province is forcing us. And it's, you know, it talks about 4 billion, this is through all the municipalities in Ontario, but $4 billion a year gap between, you know, what they're forcing us to do and what they're contributing in terms of their payments. And specifically around, the exact wording is complex health and social challenges, like, you know, medical related things like nursing homes, homelessness, you know, different social programs. And I don't think, my feeling is that, municipalities generate the bulk of their revenue from property taxes. Property taxes are not, they're not really a good consumption tax, meaning that, you know, the poor and the rich among us, yes, there's a scale, but we're all paying these taxes. And I think our goal should be core services like roads, you know, landfill, core services. So I support the resolution. I'm very happy with the resolution because I think we do need to push back against the province when it comes to them forcing us or asking us to fund healthcare related things. And I just, as a council, I would hope that I would spend more time, I would like to spend more time, I use the word fighting, but more time affecting change with the province than fighting with residents. That's where I would hope that I could focus. And so that's why I get behind this resolution, because, you know, I think it's important to hold the province to account and not just allow them to force us to absorb more costs through our property taxes.
Absolutely.
Especially costs that were not traditionally bordered, not traditional municipal costs, where they're just inventing us into, it's unacceptable.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Any other comments? No? No?
Want me to help you with that?
Sure.
We made a deal offline that.
You should read it. It's actually a good one.
What she's
Yeah,
got,
I'm going to-
Yeah, I want to hear this one. I like
Give him
it.
some breath. Now therefore be resolved that whereas current provincial municipal fiscal arrangements are undermining Ontario's economic prosperity and the quality of life. Whereas nearly a third of municipal spending in Ontario is for services in area of provincial responsibility and expenditures are outpacing provincial contributions by nearly $4 billion a year. Whereas municipal revenues such as property taxes do not grow with the economy or inflation. Whereas unprecedented population and housing growth will require significant investments in municipal infrastructure. Whereas municipalities are being asked to take on complex health and social challenges like homelessness, support asylum seekers, and addressing the mental health and addictions crisis. Whereas inflation, rising interest rates, and provincial policy decisions are sharply constraining municipal fiscal capacity. Whereas property taxpayers, including people on fixed incomes and small businesses, can't afford to subsidize income redistribution programs for those most in need. Whereas the province can and should invest more in the prosperity of communities. Whereas municipalities and the provincial government have strong history of collaboration. Therefore be resolved that the province of Ontario commit to undertaking with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario a comprehensive social and economic prosperity review to promote the stability and sustainability of municipal finances across Ontario. And further that a copy of this motion be sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing and to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Thank you very much. So all in favor of the resolution? And I am as well. That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Just off topic, a quick thing to do. In that resolution, we see that it was sent by Hanover, AMO, and another municipality. Are they just other municipalities that have supported the resolution? Is that?
Initially, so we will receive this resolution at least 100 more times.
Oh, really?
So every time that someone supports it, we receive a copy and it circulates all around again and again. So it just so happened to be the one that we chose to bring forward.
Gotcha. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 9.13, which is the Ontario Energy Board Decision Phase 1. of Enbridge Gas, 2024 rebasing application. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Grant and Councillor Morgan. All right. I hope everyone's had a chance to read this and is there any discussion? No, nothing?
I just wanted to highlight one thing.
Okay,
It's not for you guys, because I know that you read it. It's just for the public and anybody watching and involved. One sentence out of this here is, that this is, the Ontario Energy Board is sets a deliberate course to eliminate natural gas from Ontario's energy mix. And once again, back to my previous point, I mean, yes, there's a lot of very important things here locally, but there's also factors outside of Calvin that I think council needs to be aware of and pay attention to. And, if politicians in the provincial and federal levels seek to eliminate natural gas, I think that would all but eliminate, could potentially eliminate it. We're propane natural gas. I mean, it would be devastating to a rural community where the majority of us heat with these things. Our grid can't sustain everyone on electric heat and electric cars. It won't work. So the survival of Calvin, not to be dramatic, depends upon these fossil fuels, and so does our tax base. So I just think it's important to us, and you guys know this, but I'm just speaking in general.
thank you very much, Councillor Grant. And I must echo those sentiments even louder. If you remember, we had the auditors in here and they mentioned that one of their main concerns was the dependency on our tax situation from the pipeline. And the pipeline is something that pumps natural gas from one part of the country to another. And if that pipeline was not economically viable, it would probably have an effect on Calvin Township of doubling the taxes. So whatever somebody's paying in taxes right now would become double. And that it also will affect places like Papineau Cameron and Bonfield, where the pipeline goes through those communities. And in fact, this goes even further, and I'm gonna make it sound bigger and not just the alarm bells, is my main concern with Castleholm was the fact that we had a weighted assessment based on a tax structure that involved the intake of taxes from the pipeline. And yet they used that weighted assessment to gauge the taxes or the amount that we would pay on a 30-year mortgage. So if the pipeline is suffering problems in the immediate future, maybe 5 years' time, maybe 10, we'll still be paying a mortgage based on the fact that they think we still have that revenue, which we will not have. So this is actually a very serious issue. And it's one I think that I can't emphasize enough as a Calvin resident of being something of very great importance. We can't, there's a lot of things we have to do. We have to find a way to replace revenue should that happen, that we lose it. We have to decide if we're going to support Enbridge and other companies, with this rebasing decision that was reached by the provincial government. And it's something that is of great concern, to me anyway. So this resolution is just accepting this application and the information, but is there any other discussion before we do go on? No? All right, then, Madam CEO, you have anything to add there? I know you.
Well, I'm listening and I'm hearing that perhaps should be amended to include that staff be directed to prepare a resolution and a motion that would go to MPP and the ministers involved to show disagreement with what's about to happen and the reasons why, that we should prepare a motion in the future
For the next
for
meeting?
the next meeting.
All right,
Is that what I think that's what I'm hearing.
I mean, it'd be nice to get, I think it's some sort of action would be nice. But, so I would definitely support that.
All right. Madam CEO, can I get you to,
Uh,
so I'll get you to read this resolution if you wouldn't mind before we vote on it.
Okay, the Council for the Corporation of the Municipality of Calvin has received correspondence from Enbridge Gas regarding the OEB's decision on phase one of the Enbridge Gas 2024 rebasing application issued in December 2023, and that staff be directed to prepare a motion to support Enbridge's request that council reach out to the MPP to share their support for the government's quick action and write the OEB about consequences of reduced access to the natural gas grid to support economic development, housing growth, energy reliability, and that we will use our voice to acknowledge the need for natural gas and infrastructure in Ontario and in Calvin today and into the future while we take measured steps towards energy transition.
Excellent. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is 9.1.4 Hydro One's notification of regular vegetation maintenance program. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Morton, and seconded by Councillor Manson. Any discussion on this report? Any questions? No? All right, call this to a vote. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Municipality of Calvin has received correspondence from Hydro One entitled Notification of Regular Vegetation Maintenance Program on the Rutherglen DS F1 feeder, which runs from Bont Hills, Mattawa area in 2024-2025, and direct staff to provide a copy of the resolution to the sender, indicating that it has no concerns with the proposed work to be undertaken. All those in favor? Councilor Morton, you're no, okay, then that is carried unanimously. I'm in favor as well. Next item on the agenda is the group of 4 new OPP detachment board structure and operations. This I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Manson and Councillor Grant. Is there any discussion on this? Pardon me?
Do you want me to read it for you?
Well, we should see if there's any discussion first. Go ahead, Councillor
I
Grant.
just had one point, it's a good stage because it's early in the process, it talks about how we would be levied under the new board. It talks about municipalities agreeing upon the, I guess, assessment of how we determine how much money we're gonna pay. And I just think that it's worth mentioning that, you know, when it comes to social services, things like policing and things that, these are population-based services, you know, or larger populations require more services than smaller populations. And that we make significant efforts not to be scaled based on CVA, and instead scaled based on per capita. And that would just be moving forward as this board develops.
Any other discussion?
I disagree with the recommendation that we wait until April. The whole point, and when I discussed this with Mr. Gervais, I agree with him coming and speaking to the council and doing all these things that are recommended in the resolution. But the point of the original recommendation was to have a working group together before April 1st, which is the recommendation of the Ontario Police Association of Police Service Boards, have a working group together to mold the transition as into the, and that's what everybody else in the province is doing. They're creating, and so my letter to all the group of 4 was to say, if you decide before April 1st to make a resolution to make a counselor on the board, then that person then is not in lame duck. They know that they're going forward from April the 1st, and then they can make a decision based on what's going to happen in April. Whereas if we wait till April 1st, and then this recommendation would be April 14th, then everything's done. We just have to live with whatever happens. And basically, from what I've been told, it's gonna be that way anyway. But at least if we had a working group together, they have somebody to talk to, because and one of my conversations with the ACAO was, well, I'm currently the chairman of the board, but we're getting dissolved. So we're kind of like in lame duck. So who does the CAO contact now? Well, until April 1st, we still have a board. But the board's saying we're all looking at it like, well, what are we supposed to do? Like police association, the solicitor general's office, barely even acknowledging our systems. So why even do anything until we have some kind of background to say, well, we're going forward from April 1st, we're gonna be here, so work with us. And in view of Councillor Grant's suggestion, the levy's the levy. Right now, the levy doesn't, under the new formula for the police service board for the group of 4, the current levy wouldn't account for their current expenses.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Morton. Madam CEO, you had some discussion with the, and I thought that there was an idea of perhaps setting up an interim board, if you will. Could you explain that a little bit?
So I'll speak to the motion before us, acknowledging the chairperson of the current board structures recommendation that we immediately appoint someone, and also a community representative that all 4 members have to agree on. So we can't sit here and just appoint someone. We have to get together at some point in time, all 4 councils, to agree on who that community rep. That's one of the issues. The number of questions that Councillor Morton has today in his capacity as chair proves exactly why we need Mr. Gervais to come to council to answer these questions. Because there are answers to every one of those questions, as my correspondence does allude to. I had a number of those questions and wanted to address them in the presence of my peer CEOs of the group of 4. We had that meeting today with Mr. Gervais. Many of the items were we now are aware as CEOs, and I would want you to hear this as council from the source about how you move forward. So for example, Councillor Morton, to your point about what do you do in the meantime, that board, the current board, should be working today on dissolving, because they have to close out the bank accounts. They have to make sure that everything's paid. They're shutting down essentially. So if they're not meeting and waiting until April 1st, they can't start until they shut down the organization that they already have today. So there are a lot of things right now that the current board should be working on and doing in preparation for the next board. And the next board isn't deciding on the levy for OPP services. What we're charged with is the operational costs of this organization as we are today. But I don't know about this council, but have you ever received what that notional budget would be from? So those are the things that you need to think about before sending someone off to represent council. You need to know what the role of that representative truly is. And there's a community consultation expectation. This is about how you're satisfied or not with police services being delivered in the group of 4 region. And if we're never consulting, if we don't inform ourselves about what the role of that board is, then what are you sending your council member off to do when you don't know, they don't know? So the opportunity is not on April 1st, Councillor Morton, it's prior to April 1st. So I didn't suggest that the motion does say that we invite him to a council meeting prior to April 1st. So this is all said and done. Everyone is informed. The person who now knows their responsibility from a community-wide perspective, it's not just to us. And as an aside, no different than any other board. Let's talk about, Castle Home. We need to ensure that the bylaws and resolutions that this new organization shall adopt for itself doesn't prevent that municipal council representative from now reporting to you as council. You don't want another situation where that council member is saying, oh, sorry, I can't tell you because my first obligation is to the OPP detachment board and not to council and not to my community. So there are many, many things outside of just simply nominating someone or assigning someone to that role. You need to know what the role is. You need to know what more about what the organization should be doing, how they ought to be carrying that out, and what kind of community representative you need so that you can advertise that position. That's my view on the whole take. And without you hearing that from Tom Gervais, who has been assigned the role to work with municipalities as we go through this and with the new OPP detachment board, the last thing I believe that we need, once again, as we've heard from Mr. Morton, is that they rarely met. There is an obligation that they meet a minimum of 4 times a year. As we've brought, into this new council's agenda now, where people are reporting about their representation, you need to be sure that you're supporting your representative to carry out the role that is intended to. And it's not just sitting on the board. It's why are you sitting on the board and how are you communicating with the public and with council to determine whether or not you're satisfied with the police services offered in your community. So I'm sorry, I think that I offended you, Councillor Morton, by requesting that Mr. Gervais come. I assume that I had all of these questions and that council should have and probably has the same questions without even knowing that they may.
If I may, I think that this goes beyond this board and to all boards. And I think we should have a clear idea of what the role and the duties of every person, be it the planning board, be it the North Bay Mammal Conservation Authority, of what their role is on that board and what their responsibility is. And I don't think it's any different for this one. If I may suggest one change to this resolution, it would simply be to say in the second line, as a result of their review of these correspondences, council accepts the recommendation of the CEO that Mr. Gervais be invited to the council meeting as soon as possible prior to April the 1st. Would that be all right?
It will be, and so that you know, because we knew this was coming and I didn't want to wait, his schedule when I spoke to him last week or weekend, whenever that was becoming very full. I did give him the schedule of council meetings in advance and he has confirmed that he can make it to the next meeting of council.
Well, there you go. That's.
So when the resolution was written, right, he was away and I didn't have that. So if we leave it as is, we want to change it. But just so that you know, if you do approve this resolution, he is available to attend next meeting.
Excellent. Councilor Martin.
Just in reference to our CAO's comment, they're not offending me. The information that I, as the chair, have got from the Solicitor General's office has been nothing.
And that's why I think it's important that, we're doing this.
But you're saying, I've asked him all those questions and he didn't have an answer for me. I asked him what going forward, he says, you're gonna be dissolved, you're not gonna be there. I said, I know that, what do we do? I don't know, I said about sending that letter out that I sent out. And he said, well, that'd be really nice if you do it, but it's nice of you to do that, was the way he described it.
Well, it's clear that you need to know the roles.
I think there's an opportunity to take the bull by the horns here in the leadership role as at least our council in inviting him in, getting to hear it, and
Absolutely.
Is it worth having the other councils?
their CEOs are very aware of what we're doing here, what my approach has been in inviting them. I mean, I didn't need to invite them. Thought that they may find this useful also in inviting them to the meeting today. We met for an hour with Mr. Gervais, lots of questions and answers. And, we spoke about budgets and who designs those budgets, who approves them, what should be in them. So I know that the same will come forward. And I will prompt those questions if you don't have them at the table that day.
Perfect. All right, so if there's no other discussion, I'll call this to a vote. Now therefore be it resolved that Council for the Corporation Municipality of Calvin is in receipt of a request from the Group of 4 OPP Board Chairperson, Councillor Morton, to appoint council representative and a community at large member to the new OPP Detachment Board, and correspondence from Tom Gervais, Minister of the Solicitor General, responding to our CEO's questions about the new OPP Detachment and board structure and operations. And furthermore, as a result of their review of these correspondences, council accepts the recommendation of the CEO. Mr. Gervais will be invited to a council meeting prior to April 1st, 2024 to provide more information to council about the OPP Detachment Board's roles, responsibility, as well as council's obligations to it. And that council nomination of a representative to the OPP Detachment Board and a community member at large be deferred until after Mr. Gervais' presentation to council. All those in favor? And I am as well, so that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much for the discussion and the attention to this issue. The next item on the agenda is the chief building official report, December and month and year to date and for 2023. Go mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Morgan, Councillor Manson. All right, are there, the building inspector report is attached. Are there any questions or comments? None? All right, then we have received that report, so I will call this to a vote. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation Municipality of Calvin Township has received a report from the chief building official. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. I am in favor as well. Next item on the agenda is the Calvin Fire Chief report.
Again, this week, we've had no fire calls.
Okay.
Fantastic. Yesterday I took the day and I went door to door.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
Could I get a mover and a seconder for that? I don't believe I did. Could I get a mover and a seconder for this report? All right, Councillor Morton. And Councillor Manson. I'm sorry.
Again, like I said, no fire calls. I took the day yesterday and I did a door to door in Lauder Township.
Excellent.
Met a lot of fantastic people. Very supportive of the fire department and a lot of new people. And there's one resident that actually gave me a lot of information on who to contact. As was several of them weren't home, but she was a good resource. They were a good resource actually. So I'm going to continue with that. And once I have compiled the information, I'm going to pass it on to the CAO. I'm also currently working on a newsletter for fire prevention to do a general mail out to all the local residents. So the family skate, well, the temperature has changed and it's looking promising. As you'll see in the next items, I'm asking council for some contribution in the effect of supplying some funds to purchase a lot of the materials and food needed for these community events that the fire department is currently hosting. The breakfast with Santa costs the association quite a bit of money. And again, the family escape, we are providing hot dogs and hot chocolate and so forth. So we're asking for a donation of some sort, and I had put in think $800 for the 3 events. Family escape, the spring breakfast, and the spring cleanup.
All right, thank you very much. That'll be coming up in the next resolution for those items. So I'll leave that for 1 second.
Okay.
And does anyone have any comments on the report itself for today? Councilor Manson.
Just to comment that I think that was fantastic, going door to door to those louder folks, talking about that agreement and just doing some fire prevention with them.
Mhm.
So, thanks, thank you.
Can I ask just for a little bit more detail on the Lauder situation? How far do we go down? Is that still in flux? Is that whole program? Do you know, I guess what I'm getting at is that, is it just Lauder Township or does it go into the next township?
No, it's just water.
So it's anybody on Highway 630
630.
on Lauder?
630 at Floods Road, there's one resident there, and 4 on McLaughlin Road.
Okay. And they're the ones that you're reaching out to. And is that going to require consensus of all residents as they had originally thought? Or is that going to be a voluntary participation?
Well, it's gonna be a voluntary participation, but they were also advised of the cost. If it's not unanimous, there is a cost, versus, there's a cost of occurrence if there's an incident on their residence, on their property.
So are you required to go to any house that's on fire on Highway 630, regardless of whether they have this agreement or not? Go ahead.
So I was going to suggest that the bylaw does cover that, right? And the bylaw will be brought forward. The reason Marielle was going in advance was to alert some residents who, to get their list of who they are, because we don't have current lists, and to alert those new people of the existence of this bylaw. And my question before I move on to the next piece was, are they aware of the rate? Did you mention the rate? And you mentioned that rate to be 150?
Yes.
150, okay, it's just because we were waiting for Mariel to tell us the agreement takes place retroactively to January. So we haven't put out those invoices yet, and the bylaw does say that everyone will receive a copy of the agreement, and the agreement very, very clearly states if they don't opt in, that by opting out and not paying the invoice, then they will be charged the MTO rate per occurrence, which is a lot more than the 150 a year.
Yeah.
Also,
It's $5.59 an hour for fire truck,
and that's for each fire truck, correct?
each fire truck.
So overall, then my question was there any resistance to either the new rate or participating?
Not the participation. And they were all, some residents, it wasn't the owner that was there. So the rate couldn't be discussed with them.
So we're good to bring the bylaw forward, or the invoices forward. We do need the bylaw to be, to come back to council because we're changing the rate that hasn't been changed since before 2020 and then, teen years of 2000. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the report. Just call us to a vote. That is to accept the report as it was. So now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin has received a report from the fire chief. All those in favor? I am as well, so that is carried. The next item on the agenda is the one item that the fire chief brought up, which is 9.1.8, which is a request for financial contribution. You need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Morton and seconder, Councillor Grant. Any discussion here? Councillor Grant.
I just was. Not that I'm necessarily opposed to the resolution, I'm just trying to understand where the funds will come from. I think they would, if this money's to be spent, it would have to be accounted for in my opinion, it would be accounted for in the fire department's budget for this year. That's how I would envision that. So meaning that, if we approve pre-budget decision, we would be accepting that budget item in advance. So, not a big deal, just that if we tried to maintain a 1% or 2% increase or 0% increase in the fire department, we might draw that money somewhere else. But I would support it, except that it's not just extra money would come somewhere in the fire budget. It's the way I envision it.
Council Morton.
That makes sense.
Well, my position on this would be that we don't have a recreation committee. And these events are basically run by the fire department to benefit the community because we don't have a recreation committee. So this money would normally have come out of the recreation budget. And the fire department has needs in the fire department, and these are community events, which as you saw during the past year or so, the fire department's been very supportive of the community, trying to build trust within the community and build some community events. These are recreation community events. The fire department really doesn't have to become involved in.
Right.
So that's why as we're coming down to a crunch for financials, then this should be from recreation.
Before I go on to Councillor Grant for a second comment, could I ask you, Donna, to just give us an idea of how this works into the budget and into the financing?
Well, as Councillor Grant said, we haven't approved the budget, so essentially we haven't approved any expenses that we should be incurring in 2024. And this is a small ask of $800, as Councillor Morton has said, to support the volunteer firefighters in carrying out a role they don't typically carry out in the municipality, in bearing the full cost of a recreational community support activity, an activity or activities. In this case, the only activities that are community-based in Calvin are put on by the fire department, in fact, and have been for the last year at least.
Okay,
Where would it come from? We would most definitely need to include that $800 went into the budget when we're having budget deliberations. And I have a file that's this thick about all those kinds of things that are thrown in there. And should this resolution be passed, it's another one that will, get in. And Meryl and I have sat down to put together a preliminary budget request that will come to council when we start talking about budgets. And this is in there. It would be in there.
so for my comment here, I think that this is not a donation to an outside organization. This is within Calvin to benefit Calvin through the fire department. And I would be in favor of passing this resolution.
And if I might add, the other thing that this is doing is the Calvin Fire Association is taking full responsibility for whatever it is that's required that day. So they're not asking staff to order food, to prepare food, to pay for food. It is saying, let's draft a $800 check to the Calvin Firefighters Association and let them carry out the activity and all of the organizing and paying the bills of. And
I just have one question to the fire chief. You guarantee that we're gonna have ice? Yes.
today it looks good. 2 days ago it didn't.
Yesterday it looked good.
Actually, 3 days from now, I think I saw it was going down to -20 again. So
Yeah.
that does bode well for a little bit of ice. All right, if there's no other comments, are there any other comments? No?
But sorry, one quick comment. Again, just a thank you for organizing these events and spearheading them. It's, they're great events. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Department. In the department as a whole.
Great, thank you very much. All right, so I'll call this to a vote. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Calvin hereby receive and approve the fire chief's request for financial contribution of $800 payable the Calvin Firefighters Association as a donation towards their cost incurred as a result of hosting the following community activities: Familyscape February for $300, Spring Breakfast April 2024 $500, and Spring Cleanup May 2024 no cost. All those in favor? That is unanimous and that is carried. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is again from the fire department. And this is resolution 2024. The 2006 Chevrolet rescue truck 1985 GMC Brigadier pumper and tanker, and the 2006 Chevy 3500. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Morton and Councillor Grant.
There needs to be an amendment, because, 1 and 3 is the same truck.
I was wondering about Ty.
Yes,
Thought maybe I really missed something.
thank you. Also, the rescue truck is the
Yes.
3500.
Yeah.
So then we're looking at just two. Okay, so we'll just cross out.
Should cross out number 1 because number 3 identifies it as
Yeah.
is, which it has to be.
So we will cross out number 1. And you call number 2, number 1, and number 3, number 2. All right, any other discussion? Discussion? Done?
Oh, it's been done long ago. We talked about this during our campaign.
Okay,
Thank you. I think it's excellent. If they're redundant assets, let's get them out of here. Turn them into some money.
Yeah, exactly.
although there is a lack of iron in the ground, and if we just left them there long enough, they probably rust into the ground and increase the iron content of it.
The tires on the 1 unit are brand new, never been used.
Really? So that should
There's
work
a,
into how they'll be sold.
the 3500's got summer and winter tires and the one set have never been on the vehicle.
Well, I would imagine that if they're declared as surplus, those tires would be sold in a way to benefit the fire department as much as can. Right, any other discussion?
And I just wanted to thank Muriel again, because one of the first things that we discussed, her and I, when she was first hired, was that these things hadn't been taken care of and that there was money sitting in the yards that needed. And, you know, when we were discussing the fire chief's role, the administrative piece of it, you know, was a very critical part of the role of the fire chief. And so I want to thank Muriel again for, you know, for picking that part of the pieces up, because it's only so much that we can do in the office. And so we're working together, and we will work together to make sure that these things go out in time and that they're, you know, the bids go out, and, you know, the wording that Muriel wants to see in there and send to me, and we'll work together to make that happen. It'll be a joint office attempt, because, you know, the staff that we have in the office can help, and when that time comes too. So thank you for all that you're doing, Muriel.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments? And we'll call this to a vote. Now therefore be it resolved that the council for the municipality of Calvin support the fire chief's recommendation that the following municipal assets be declared as surplus. Number 1, 1985 GMC Brigadier pumper tanker, and 2, a 2006 Chevrolet 3500 HD sold as is. And further, that council directs the fire chief to bring forth at her earliest opportunity to the CAO for their consideration the individual draft bylaws to declare these municipal assets surplus, as well as the documents to be employed in the promotion of their sale. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. I'm in favor as well. By the way, if you're wondering why I keep saying I'm in favor as well, that was something that Municipal Affairs addressed, that I can't just say carried, because it doesn't imply that I voted on the issue. So
And one more thing, while it's here, is that the misnomer out there, the misunderstanding that the mayor's role is to only vote when there's a tie.
Right.
That's not true in the process, and so that was the other important reason for why you needed to vote, so that the general public also recognizes that.
If we didn't vote, it is considered a negative vote.
that's correct. Next item on the agenda, MCO, do we excuse the fire chief at this point?
Oh, sure, if you'd like to leave, Muriel.
Marielle, if you wish to remain and enjoy our company, that's fine, but if you also wish to not be driving on the roads as late as everybody else, please feel free. Thank you very much for your participation tonight. The next item on the agenda is the Public Works Road Report. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Grant and Councillor Manson. All right, so is there discussion on the roads report? Okay, so I'll ask you, you want me to speak to the report, please? All right.
All right, so for the month of January, we plowed a total of 11 times. Used about 800 to 1,000 ton of our sand. Our sand inventory for this year is looking really well. We still have about 1,500 tons left over. We also have deployed our backhoes this year to clear around mailboxes and bridge decks. The new dump truck, just to update everybody, I contacted Gincor on the 29th, and they told me it was en route from Mexico and should be here by the end of this week roughly. The rink update, the month of January has been pretty good for the rink. We only had to close it for a brief time during this month due to the weather. Not sure how the month of February will go. We'll have to see how that pans out. Budget, I've also started getting quotes on shingling of the sand dome roof, new roll-up doors for sand dome, and pricing on a company pickup truck. The garage, the last week of January, we organized and gave the roads garage a deep cleaning. We took out a total of 15 bucket loads of garbage and about 3 bucket loads of scrap metal. Grading with the mild weather, they are calling for in February. We have taken advantage of it and we'll do some much needed grading. That's all I have to report on for this month.
If I might add though, Brandon,
Yeah.
you've also been doing some brushing. There's, a lot of times when there's no snow to plow. And so, in speaking with the road superintendent and, what is roads doing right now and questions that may be coming in from the public and from you as council members to know that cleaning out the garage took a good full few days, as you said, but they have been carrying out some brushing activity and not dissimilar to fire. We also have a truck over there that's sitting there and, wasting away and working its way into the ground. And so that declaring surplus and the putting that up for sale, we're working on that document too.
Wonderful.
Got most of that done.
Any discussion or questions? No, well, Council Manson?
Just want to say thank you. I know the weather is brutally challenging for your team. It's going to be tricky from one day to the next and there are new challenges. So thank you. I feel safe driving on the roads and I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's very challenging. Yesterday we were grading, today we're plowing sand. It's like, it doesn't make any sense at all.
It's always amazing to me that you go for a drive in the township and sometimes it's just better to take all the back roads rather than go up the provincial highways because they're better taken care of than the provincial highways. So thank you. I do have a quick question. Somebody asked me and I do not know the answer to this, but someone told me that there was a provision in the township that a resident can come with a bucket and get a bucket of sand to use in their driveway. How does that?
Correct. It's always been a thing in the past where we just dump a load of sand outside the sand dome and people can come as they need and help themselves. Like if you need a couple bucketfuls for their yard or stuff like that, it's always been a thing we've done for the taxpayers.
Wonderful. Now, is there a restricted time or can they come 24 hours a day?
24 hours a day, they can just help themselves.
Yeah.
It's outside.
Yeah, cameras.
We're all on camera. We know it. We know exactly.
But it's a bucket of sand.
Yeah, so like a
Like pail.
Yeah, don't be taking like 3 or 4 truckloads all in there, but yeah, so like. Just,
So you
yeah,
come,
Pail or a.
like a half a trailer load or something, depending on the trailer, like. Yeah, just like we've done it, like my theory is I basically go a backhoe bucket. Like, don't take more than a backhoe bucket, basically.
Fair enough.
That's what, and that's a pretty generous amount for the year.
That's very generous. I would think that if I was, addressing the residents, which we are here, that, 1 or 2 pails that they could take home and use in their driveway if there was an icy patch. Because unfortunately, the reason I'm asking this question is with the way the temperatures work this year, a lot of the driveways are just sheets of ice because it all melts, turns into liquid, and then it freezes, and then you have nothing but ice. And
That's my theory behind it. Like, if they're gonna come get sand, it makes it easier for the fire trucks if they're gonna sand their driveway. If we gotta go with fire calls, anything, like, it's kind of somewhat sanded. Not as much as a hazard for us.
right on. Now, the other thing, I just do a quick question. You mentioned that the truck should be coming in next week from Mexico, but it has to go to Gincor to have work done on it for.
Correct.
It'll be another month after that,
6 to 8 weeks
6 to 8 weeks after that.
after that, yeah. They're pre-ordered the plows and everything, so they didn't have to wait for the plows. when they go off the truck, so everything's sitting there, they're just literally waiting on the truck.
Go around.
And Rob assured me that Gincor's slower, they're on their slower end, so as soon as they get the truck, it'll be in the shop the next day or that day, start,
Great.
so.
All right, well, thank you for your report. Are there any other questions or comments? No, no? Then I will call this to a vote. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin Township has received a report from the interim's road superintendent. All those in favor? And I am as well, so that motion is carried. Thank you, Brandon. You're in the same position that if you wish to vacate, you're welcome to do so, but you're also welcome to stay.
People do slow, I'm not working 4:30. So I think I'll.
Thank you very much, both of you, for coming to the meeting tonight.
Have a good night.
You too. The next item on the agenda is 9.1.11, which is the 2024-25 municipal insurance renewal. I need a mover and a seconder. Okay, Councillor Morton and Councillor Manson. Is there discussion on the insurance renewal? No, no discussion? No discussion? Anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, if you recall, a few meetings ago, we supported another municipality's motion to bring to the attention of the Ontario government the rising increasing costs of insurance to municipalities, and we're right in line where the average across Ontario is 11% increase. This year, we're seeing an 8% increase, which is not beautiful and wonderful, and it's a lot more than your typical percentage of tax rate increase this one budget item alone.
Well, a 5% tax increase as opposed to an 8% insurance increase.
Right.
Any other discussion? None? Then I'll call this to a vote. Now therefore be it resolved that the council has received and reviewed the 2024-25 municipal insurance renewal documents as presented by Municipal Insurance Services Limited, MIS, dated February the 27th, 2024, and notes the increase of 8% over the previous year, and hereby authorizes the CEO to bind the premium and coverage summary and MIS to proceed to issue and invoice the applicable policy documents. All those in favor? And I am as well, so that is carried unanimously. We are now into section 10 of the agenda, which is agencies, boards, committees, reports, and minutes. The first item is 10.1.1.1, which is the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority, and that is Councillor Morton. You did provide, I believe, the minutes.
The minutes were posted for all the past 2 months meetings, and our next meeting is not till the 29th of February, so there won't be any new meeting, new report next meeting either.
All right. That's it. That's it. Thank you. The next item is the Mattawa and Area Police Services Board. Councillor Morton. Oh, we're gonna drag this one out for you. Yes, I know.
I said there hasn't been anything new. I haven't heard that from anybody except our CAO about what's going on, and although I heard tonight that they had a meeting during today, the last I heard was that they're only dealing with the mayors and the CAOs, and they're not dealing with their board, so we just basically went to sleep.
But in fact, they aren't dealing with the mayors and CEOs. I initiated that call.
No, so I mean, they're not discussing anything with us. We're not getting any of the training sessions anymore. So our local committee just basically said, I guess we're waiting for some kind of direction, either from the townships or from the government.
All right. Well, thank you for that report. East Nipissing Planning Board. I should mention that we did have a counselor who was going to resign, but that has since been resolved and that counselor is not resigning. I have posted the minutes for the East Nipissing Planning Board in today's agenda, so they're available for anyone to see from the last meeting. There has been a number of severances that have come forward, and I think the planning board is getting busier, which is a good sign. It's a sign of the economy growing. So we'll just keep moving forward, and Councillor Grant will be at the next meeting, and so will I, to encourage everyone to have new severances. The next item is the physicians recruitment committee. Since I was off on medical leave, there hasn't been a meeting. They only meet 4 times a year. The next meeting is next month. So I don't have anything to report for recent activity, but I should say that just before I left, we were up to 3 physicians who are moving to Mattawa, which is a really good accomplishment of that committee. We face medical shortages across the province, and of course you hear about nursing shortages, you hear about staff shortages and a shortage of doctors. So the fact that there are 3 doctors that will be coming to Mattawa is comforting, because there's a number of doctors who are on the verge of retirement. So that committee is going well, and I probably won't be able to report at the next meeting, but the meeting after that about what's happening with the committee. The last one is the Ad Hoc Code of Conduct Committee, and that is for Councillor Grant, Manson, and Latimer. Councillor Latimer is not here, so Councillor Grant or Manson, do you have anything to report?
I can speak to it, just that there's no new updates since last time, except simply that our next meeting is March 1st. I'm getting some head nods, so I got that one right. And they are open to the public, so the public can attend if they choose, and hopefully it won't take us long to bring something back to council.
Perfect. All right, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item 11, which is the roundtable. For me, the only thing that I will mention is I did spend a moment looking at Ray Belanger's 1-hour presentation of what's happened in Mattawa over the last month. If anyone has a chance, it's an interesting look at what is going on in a neighboring municipality and what has happened in the year, and give you some ideas about some of the challenges that we jointly face. Councillor Grant, anything for the roundtable?
No, I have nothing.
No? And Councillor Manson? Nothing? No, thank you. And Councillor Morton?
Well, the only thing I'd like to add to the fire chief's report, she's putting together a newsletter to distribute through the township, and I could encourage anybody else that has something that they'd want to offer to that publication. I mean, it's gonna be a postage cost. So might as well take advantage of it and join in. I know the mayor has often talked about putting out a community message.
On that note,
On that note,
staff is asked to do.
yeah, I've been asked to work a little bit on putting a newsletter together for the tax bill, which is going out at the end of February, I believe.
Well, there you go.
And of course, postage is now over $1 an envelope. You can send out flyers, but I mean, if we're sending out a tax bill,
It's the same thing.
yeah,
When I sent out the postage for the letter we all sent out during the campaign, I think it was like 250 letters, and it worked out to about $60 or $70.
right.
So I mean, if you send out a flyer, it's gonna be $60 or $70 because there's 250 residences at that time in the community.
So I will be working on a newsletter. I haven't started yet, so please excuse. But I will be working on something for the end of February. And I will contact council individually and ask them for their contributions. So that's something you could all look forward to.
Good message from mayor and council,
Exactly.
not the staff, so the staff appreciated, so mayor and council message.
We've been in our seats for a little over a year now, so some of the newness is wearing off.
And you know, it feels like that. All right, so that's the roundtable. Next item on the agenda is moving into closed session. So I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Manson and Councillor Morton. Now therefore be it resolved that the council for the Corporation of Municipality of Calvin hereby move into closed session at 7:30 p.m. Pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act to consider as follows. Pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001, council should move into closed session to discuss labor relations or employee negotiations. Advice that is solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for the purposes. I thank our audience and staff for coming, and thank you, Teresa. I will just call this to a vote. All those in favor? And I'm as well. So we are now moving into closed. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Teresa. And thank you, residents of Calvin, for attending.